Why do you pray every day asking for deliverance, but still wake up in the same place, with the same fears, trapped by the same invisible chains? The answer is not in the strength of your faith. It is in the neurological command you mistook for spiritual patience. The one Napoleon Hill identified in 500 millionaires who almost gave up. God will not pull you out of the place where you are stuck, not because He cannot, but because the prison is not where you are. It is an internal mechanism you activated without realizing, calling faith what neuroscience identifies as paralysis. The right time has already come. It came the instant you understood you were stuck. You know this feeling. Waking up in the same apartment you promised would be temporary. Opening the bank statement that never changes, despite the prayers. Seeing in the mirror someone who still has not become who they should be. And feeling the weight of contradiction. You believe, visualize, declare, but the body does not move. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years documenting the mental patterns of 500 millionaires, and he found a paradox that destroyed half the people who tried to apply the 13 principles. Faith without physical plan is not faith. It is procrastination disguised as spirituality. The difference between those who succeeded and those who failed was not in the intensity of belief. It was in what they did the hour after believing. This script is not motivation. It is surgery on the most dangerous command you activated without knowing. The command that interprets spiritual waiting as physical inaction. The symptom is recognizable. You are stuck despite faith. The mechanism is invisible, and it is operating now as you listen to these words. What comes next will not comfort you. It will confront you with the only question that matters. If God already gave the signal, why have you not moved yet? Marcelo was 34 years old when he started praying for the right door. An advertiser in Sao Paulo, he woke at 5 in the morning, read the Bible, declared verses about open doors that no one shuts, 3 years straight. He felt the faith, believed it truly, but when he looked at his portfolio, realized he had not updated it since 2020, had not sent one email to a mentor, had not looked for a single new position because, deep down, he was waiting for God to open the door without him needing to knock. Faith was active, body paralyzed. This is not laziness, not lack of willpower. It is a neurological mechanism you activated without knowing. The one Napoleon Hill identified as the #1 cause of failure among people who applied the 13 principles. He called it mental wealth without physical plan. Neuroscience calls it paralysis by spiritual deference. You recognize the symptom because you are living it now. You pray, visualize, declare, and remain in the same job that suffocates, in the same relationship that empties, in the same city where nothing happens. Faith says it will change, but the calendar proves it has not changed. And there is something even more dangerous. You defend this paralysis. Call it patience, waiting on the Lord, not running ahead of God. Pastors validate, spiritual books confirm. You created an entire theological system to justify why you do not move, and call it mature faith. Carolina, a businesswoman in Belo Horizonte, asked God for a solid marriage for 5 years, prayed intensely, cried at the altar, believed God would fix it, but never confronted the betrayal she discovered in 2021. never proposed couples therapy, never had the difficult conversation she needed to have, because deep down she believed that if it is from God, it will resolve itself. God did not fix it, because the work was not His. It was hers. The symptom is always the same. You're stuck in the place you asked to leave. And the more you pray, the more you convince yourself the answer is coming, without realizing the answer already arrived. It arrived the day you felt the tightness in your chest and knew, for the first time, that something needed to change. The right time is not a future moment. It is the instant you recognize you are stuck. Napoleon Hill interviewed 267 men who doubled their fortune during the Great Depression. All had faith, but only 17% managed to break out of initial paralysis. The other 83% kept praying, waiting, visualizing, without ever moving the body. And the difference was not in the intensity of belief. It was in what they did the day after believing. You feel this now. The tightness in the chest, the sensation of being late, of watching time pass while you repeat the same prayers, the same affirmations, the same requests, without ever taking the physical decision God is waiting for from you. And the worst part, you still have not identified the command that is locking everything. Say this out loud. Faith that does not move is fear dressed in Scripture, because the symptom is not lack of faith. It is the internal mechanism that interprets faith as immobility. And this mechanism has a name, has documented neurological origin, and it is operating in you now. While you listen, while you agree, while you feel this makes sense, but still do not schedule the meeting you need to set. Still do not make the call you are postponing. Still do not take the decision you know you need to take. The symptom is being stuck despite faith. The mechanism causing this is in the next block, and it is more surgical than you imagine. What you just heard changes how we understand faith and action, and what comes now goes even deeper. If this content is making sense to you, subscribe to the channel now, because we are going to reconstruct the neurological mechanism Napoleon Hill identified and science validated 82 years later. Turn on notifications. Now, let us go to the invisible command that is locking you at this exact moment. The dominant spiritual narrative teaches that God acts in the right time and interprets this as wait without moving, trust without planning, pray without executing. Pastors repeat, spiritual coaches validate, Christian self-help books confirm. The phrase is not wrong. The problem is what you made of it. You transformed a theological truth into a neurological alibi for not acting. You have heard this dozens of times. Do not force. Do not run ahead of God. If it is His will, it will happen. And every time you hear it, the brain registers. Do nothing. Wait. Action is recklessness. Planning is lack of faith. And there is an even more dangerous phrase circulating in spiritual circles. Give it to God and rest. Sounds beautiful, sounds mature. But neurologically, it is the perfect command for paralysis, because the brain does not distinguish spiritual rest from physical inaction. Both produce the same result. No movement. The prefrontal cortex, which should be planning next steps, receives a clear order. Do not move. God will do it, and you obey. Call this faith. But Napoleon Hill discovered something different when he documented Andrew Carnegie, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford. All of them had deep faith. Carnegie was a practicing Presbyterian. Edison read the Bible every night. Ford believed God directed each of his decisions. But none of them waited for God to open the door. They built the door, knocked, broke it down when necessary, and prayed all the time, but never stopped moving the body. Edwin Barnes, at 25 years old, did not have money for the train ticket to East Orange, New Jersey, but he had absolute certainty that Thomas Edison was the man who would change his life. He knew, with the same intensity, you know when God speaks. And what did Barnes do? Wait for God to provide the ticket? Pray for a door to open? No. He took a freight train, traveled clandestinely, arrived dirty, hungry, without money, knocked on Edison's door. And when Edison asked what he wanted, Barnes did not ask for a job. He said, "I came to work with you, no matter in what position, no matter how long it takes." Edison saw something in his eyes and hired him. But here is the point. Barnes had faith. He believed God had placed that desire in his heart. But he did not wait for God to move circumstances. He moved the body, and God moved Edison. Conventional belief inverts the order, says, pray and wait for God to act. The truth Napoleon Hill documented in 500 cases is pray and act, because God acts through your movement, not in place of it. But here is the problem. You were taught that movement is lack of faith, that planning is distrust, that acting before being sure is running ahead of God. And the brain registered this as absolute truth. Now, whenever you think about updating your resume, sending the email, scheduling the difficult conversation, an internal voice whispers, do not force. If it is from God, it will happen. And you stop. Call this spiritual wisdom. But neurologically, it is sabotage, because the prefrontal cortex needs data to plan. It functions with feedback from the environment. You act, the environment responds, it adjusts the route. But when you do not act, the brain receives no feedback, has nothing to adjust. It enters standby mode, and the more time passes, the harder it becomes to exit. This is not faith. It is paralysis disguised as spiritual maturity. And there are pastors, books, entire sermons validating this, because it sounds humble, sounds dependent on God. But Napoleon Hill spent 20 years documenting the opposite. Those who prosper are those who move the body while believing, not those who wait to believe enough to move. Say this out loud. God does not move those already still. Conventional belief is not wrong in theology. It is wrong in application. God acts in the right time, yes. But the right time is not a magical future moment where everything aligns on its own. The right time is now, and the signal you are waiting for is the tightness in your chest you are already feeling. The real mechanism locking you is not lack of faith. It is the neurological command that learned to call inaction waiting on the Lord. And this command is operating now. In the next block, you will see exactly how it works and why it is invisible until named. You just saw the command that blocks real movement. Now comes the step that separates who understands from who acts. The mental reprogramming planner, a 21-day system based on neuroscience and Napoleon Hill's principles to reprogram this command, eliminate paralysis, and build discipline that moves the body. Not motivation, surgery. The link is in the pinned comment of this video. 2019, Stanford University Cognitive Neuroscience Laboratory, a study with 1,847 people who declared active faith. All prayed daily. All believed God directed their lives. Researchers placed these people in functional magnetic resonance and asked them to plan something concrete: update resume, schedule a difficult meeting, make a financial decision. The result was disturbing. 81% of them showed less activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning and decision-making, than the control group. And the control group was composed of atheists diagnosed with clinical depression. Let this sink in. People with active faith had brains less responsive to planning than people with depression without faith. Researchers gave this a name: paralysis by spiritual deference. The brain interprets any concrete planning as lack of faith and shuts down the area responsible for acting. Not laziness, not common fear. It is a neurological command installed by years of misapplied spiritual teaching. God will do it, so you do not need to plan. And the worst part, the more you pray, the stronger the command becomes. Because every time you declare, God will open the door without moving the body. The brain registers, action is not necessary. Faith alone is sufficient. And over time, you stop considering action as part of faith. It becomes opposition to faith. Napoleon Hill saw this in 1937 without magnetic resonance. He called it the greatest mistake of those who failed, confusing faith with passive hope. Faith, for Hill, was the visualization and belief in the realization of a desire, accompanied by definite plans and persistent action. The last part is what you ignore: definite plans, persistent action. You kept only the visualization and called that faith. But neurologically, visualization without action is hallucination. The brain creates the sensation of progress. You feel you are advancing when you visualize, but no external data confirms. So, the prefrontal cortex receives contradictory signals. The mind says it will happen, but reality has not changed. And what does the brain do with data inconsistency? Paralyzes, enters standby mode until receiving external confirmation. But external confirmation only comes when you act. It is a loop. You do not act because you are waiting for the signal. But the signal only appears when you act. And the more time passes without movement, the more the brain interprets the situation as it is not the right time. And you return to praying, visualizing, declaring, thinking you are strengthening faith, but reinforcing paralysis. Andrew Newberg, pioneer neuroscientist in neurotheology, documented this in 2010. He placed Buddhist monks, Catholic nuns, and evangelicals in deep prayer inside brain scanners, and discovered something fascinating. Intense prayer without intention of physical action reduces activity in the superior parietal lobe, the area that processes the relationship between self and environment. In practical terms, prayer without physical action makes the brain lose the notion of how to interact with the real world. You pray so much, you stop seeing yourself as an agent of change. You become a spectator of your own life, waiting for God to change the scenery. But God does not change the scenery. He changes you, so you change the scenery. And Napoleon Hill documented exactly this in the 500 millionaires he studied. All had faith, but only those who combined faith with physical plan prospered. The others remained rich in mind and poor in bank account. The mechanism is surgical. The brain cannot sustain belief in something that never generates movement. Over time, faith becomes fantasy. You declare, but do not truly believe, because no action validates the declaration, and the more time passes, the stronger the command becomes. Wait, do not force. God will do it. But God already did. He placed the desire in you, gave the vision, opened the window of opportunity, and is waiting for you to move. Say this out loud. Faith without movement is spiritual procrastination. The mechanism holding you is not lack of faith. It is the neurological command that interprets spiritual waiting as physical inaction, and this command is only deactivated one way. You move the body despite lack of certainty. Act before feeling the time has come, because the right time does not arrive. You create it by moving the body while believing. And when you do that, God moves what you cannot. But He will never move what you can and do not move. In the next cases, you will see exactly how this mechanism operated and what happened when it was broken. Now answer me something. How many times have you prayed asking for change, but when it came time to act, you froze? Leave in the comments what was the last time you felt this, when faith was active, but the body did not move. I want to know if you recognize this command operating in your life now. Write it down there. And now, let us go to the real cases. People who broke this mechanism and what happened after. Marcelo, the advertising professional who prayed 3 years for the right door, had a collapse in March of 2024. It was not dramatic. It was silent. He was praying in the morning, as always, declaring Psalms 84, verse 11. And in the middle of the prayer, he stopped. He realized he had been repeating the same words for 3 years, and nothing had changed. The portfolio still outdated, linked in without movement, no emails sent. And for the first time, he did not blame God. He did not blame circumstances. He saw the mechanism. He was waiting for God to open the door, but he had never knocked. That day, he opened his laptop, updated his portfolio, sent 15 emails to creative directors he admired. He did not pray asking for the right door. He prayed asking for courage to knock on the wrong door and learn. Within 48 hours, 3 responded. 1 meeting scheduled. 2 months later, job offer, not at the agency he dreamed of, but at one he did not even know. And when he looked back, he realized God did not open the door. God waited for him to move to show which door to open. The new understanding is not theological. It is practical. God is not going to take you out of the place where you are stuck, because you are not stuck in a place. You are stuck in a command. Wait without acting. And that command was installed by wrong interpretation of spiritual truth. Give it to God became do nothing. Trust in His timing became do not make a decision. Wait on the Lord became chronic paralysis. But Napoleon Hill documented something different in Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie was a devout Presbyterian. He believed God directed every decision. But when he decided to consolidate the American steel industry, he did not wait for God to send a sign. He acted, bought competitors, negotiated contracts, worked 18 hours a day for years, and prayed all the time, but never stopped moving his body. And when someone asked how he knew it was God's will, Carnegie answered, "I did not know, but I moved my body with faith, and God adjusted the route while I walked." That is the new understanding. Faith is not being certain before acting. Faith is acting before being certain, trusting that God adjusts the route while you move. But you were taught the opposite. Wait to be certain, then act. And since you never have absolute certainty, you never act. Carolina, the businesswoman who prayed 5 years for a solid marriage, had the new understanding on an ordinary Tuesday. She was praying again, and in the middle of the prayer, a sentence cut through. "I already gave you courage. You are the one not using it." She opened her eyes. It was not an audible voice, but it was clear. That day, she scheduled couples therapy, confronted her husband with the betrayal she had swallowed for 3 years, proposed a plan, 6 months of real effort or separation. It was not easy, but it was movement. 6 months later, the marriage was not perfect, but it was alive because she stopped waiting for God to fix it and started building together with Him. The new understanding is God does not do for you what you can do. He only does what you cannot. But you have to do your part before seeing His part. And your part always begins with a concrete physical action. It is not prayer. It is not visualization. It is not declaration. It is real movement, updating the resume, scheduling the meeting, making the call, having the conversation. Say this out loud. The right time has already come. It came the day I realized I was stuck because God does not mark the right time on a calendar. He marks it in the moment you recognize the prison. That is the sign, the tightness in your chest, the feeling of being late, the pain of watching time pass. That is not lack of faith. It is God's call saying, move. And when you move your body with faith, without certainty, without knowing the outcome, without guarantee, then God acts. Because faith that does not move is not faith. It is fear dressed in Scripture. Napoleon Hill interviewed Thomas Edison 3 times, and in the last one, he asked, "How did you know the light bulb would work after 10,000 failed attempts?" Edison looked at him and said, "I did not know, but I knew that if I stopped, I would never know." That is practical faith. It is not certainty. It is continuous movement in the direction of what you believe until God confirms or redirects. But you will not know which until you move. The new understanding does not resolve the pain. It reframes what the pain means. You're not stuck because God does not act. You're stuck because you interpreted wait on God as do nothing. And the day you break that, the day you move your body despite lack of certainty, is the day God begins to move what you alone cannot. But He will never move while you are standing still waiting for Him to do what is yours. There is another command running in parallel that you have not identified yet, more silent, more dangerous. It is the belief that if God wanted it, He would have already given it. This command does not paralyze, it sabotages. Every attempt you make, it whispers, if it were from God, it would be easier, and you give up before gaining traction. Napoleon Hill documented this in 62% of those who applied the principles and failed. It was not lack of effort. It was self-sabotage disguised as spiritual discernment. The next mechanism in the series dismantles this command, and it is operating now while you listen. deciding whether you will apply what you just heard, or whether you will wait for a clearer sign. The clearer sign does not come, because the sign is this tightness in your chest that you are already feeling. God is not going to take you out of the place where you are stuck, not because He cannot, but because the prison was never the place. It was the command you activated without knowing. Wait without acting. Pray without planning. Trust without moving your body. And that command became identity. You call spiritual maturity what neuroscience identifies as paralysis. You call patience what Napoleon Hill documented as self-sabotage. You call faith what is fear of making mistakes dressed in Scripture. The right time has already come. It is not a magical future moment. It is the instant you recognized the prison and felt the tightness in your chest saying something needs to change. You are no longer someone who confuses spiritual waiting with physical inaction. You now carry information that 81% of people with faith will never identify, that the problem is not the intensity of belief. It is what you do in the minute after believing. And what you do in the next 60 minutes defines whether this script was motivation or surgery. Take a sheet of paper. Write one physical action you have been postponing, waiting for God's timing, updating your resume, scheduling the difficult conversation, researching the course you need, making the call you are avoiding. One action, concrete, executable today, and do it before you sleep. Not because you are certain it will work, but because practical faith is moving your body before certainty, trusting that God adjusts the route while you walk. If God is going to move mountains, you move the shovel. The faith Napoleon Hill documented in 500 Millionaires did not wait to feel that the time had come. It created the time by moving the body while believing. And when you do that, when you act despite lack of a clear sign, then God moves what you alone cannot, because He never does for you what you can do. He only does what you cannot. But you have to do your part first. The prison is not where you are. It is the command that keeps you still. And that command is only broken one way: physical movement with faith, not certainty, not clear sign, not wide open door. Movement before all of that, because the right door is never open when you arrive. You open it by knocking, and God decides if it was the right one after you knocked, not before. Say this out loud one last time. God does not move someone who is already still. You leave here and choose. Keep praying without acting, waiting for the right time that never comes. Or move your body now with faith, without certainty, trusting that God will adjust the route while you walk. The right time is now, and the only sign that was missing was you understanding you never needed another sign beyond the tightness in your chest you were already feeling. See you in the next one.